She was best known as Archie Bunker's better half in the groundbreaking 70s sitcom All in the Family. Jean Stapleton died today of natural causes at the age of 90 at her home in New York City.
Archie, ain't we lucky that we're here to see our little girl getting married?
Jean Stapleton, the sweet, lovable face behind Edith Bunker, hid a shocking truth that fans never saw coming. She utterly hated her co-star, Carroll O'Connor. On screen, their chemistry created some of television's most unforgettable moments, making audiences laugh, cry, and fall in love with All in the Family. But behind the cameras, the story was very different. Tensions simmered, words were exchanged, and resentment grew in ways that would shock anyone who thought their bond was unbreakable. For years, whispers and rumors circulated about why two Hollywood legends who shared one of TV's most iconic partnerships could barely stand each other. And now, at long last, the real reason behind Jean Stapleton's hatred has been revealed. And it's far darker and more surprising than anyone could have imagined. Join us in this video to learn the reason behind the rivalry. If you are a fan of Jean Stapleton, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Jean Stapleton, born Jean Murray on January 19, 1923 in the bustling heart of New York City, grew up in a world that balanced warmth, culture, and the challenges of the Great Depression. Raised in a loving Irish-American household, her parents instilled in her a deep respect for learning in the arts. From a young age, Jean was drawn to the stage, performing in school plays and local productions. Her natural charm and expressive presence hinting at the star she would become. Attending Hunter College High School, she immersed herself in drama, dance, and voice lessons, honing the skills that would later define her career. The city's vibrant theater scene became her playground, offering endless opportunities to observe, learn, and dream. Even in those early years, Jean's determination and dedication set her apart. She wasn't just acting, she was discovering who she was and what she wanted to give to the world. Those formative experiences filled with passion, practice, and perseverance laid the foundation for a career that would ultimately capture the hearts of Americans across the country. Little did anyone know that the shy, talented girl from New York would grow into the unforgettable Edith Bunker, a role that would etch her name in television history. Jean Stapleton wasn't just an actress. She was the heartbeat of American television. As Edith Bunker in All in the Family, she didn't just play a role. She became a symbol of warmth, tenderness, and quiet strength. Her laughter softened tempers. Her compassion disarmed conflict, and her presence turned every chaotic scene into something deeply human. Millions adored her. She was the light in Archie Bunker's storm. But when the applause faded and the camera stopped rolling, Jean made a move that shocked everyone. She walked away. Not just from the show that made her a household name, but from any chance of ever working with Carroll O'Connor again. It was unthinkable. The most iconic pair on television, suddenly divided. How could she disappear so completely from his world, both on screen and off? Hollywood didn't understand. Offers flooded in cameos, reunion specials, heartfelt tributes. Jean turned them all down with quiet finality. Publicly, she smiled and said she'd moved on. Privately, whispers grew louder. Those who'd been on set remembered the tension, the long silences, the moments that felt heavier than dialogue. Some claimed she was never truly valued. Others suspected something deeper, something unspoken. For decades, the truth was buried, hidden beneath layers of courtesy and the polished smiles of Hollywood. But time has a way of unearthing secrets. Through interviews, memoirs, and offhand remarks, a richer, more haunting story began to surface. Not just about Edith and Archie, but about Jean Stapleton and Carroll O'Connor. Two stars who created magic together, yet carried their own private heartbreaks. And as the years passed, the pieces of their untold story finally began to fall into place. When All in the Family first hit TV screens back in 1971, no one knew it was about to change television forever. Gone were the picture-perfect sitcoms filled with fake smiles and happy endings. This show was different. It was raw, real, and sometimes uncomfortably honest. At the heart of it all were two unforgettable people. Archie Bunker, the loud, opinionated man who said whatever came to mind, and Edith, his gentle, soft-spoken wife who somehow managed to make everything feel okay. Carroll O'Connor brought Archie to life with fiery energy, bold, stubborn, and impossible to ignore. But it was Jean Stapleton's Edith who held the show together. She was the warmth that balanced Archie's roughness, the tenderness that made viewers see past his flaws. Without Edith, Archie might have been unbearable. With her, he felt human, someone you could understand, even if you didn't agree with him. Audiences laughed, cried, and sometimes winced watching them. Their arguments felt so familiar, like a real couple trying to make it through life's ups and downs. It wasn't just acting. It felt like love, frustration, and understanding all rolled into one. Off-screen, though, things were different. Carroll and Jean weren't close friends, but they deeply respected each other. Carroll was intense and hands-on with scripts and direction. Jean, on the other hand, was quiet and thoughtful, focused entirely on her craft. They didn't always see eye to eye, but when the cameras rolled, their chemistry was magic. For 9 unforgettable seasons, All in the Family tackled issues most shows wouldn't dare touch. Racism, sexism, war, politics, religion, and did it with honesty and humor. Through it all, Edith was the soul of the series. She softened the hard moments, reminded us of kindness, and gave us someone to truly care about. People laughed because of Archie, but they cried because of Edith. And the awards proved how much their work meant. Jean Stapleton took home 3 Emmys, and Carroll O'Connor won 4. Together, they didn't just make a TV show. They made history. On the outside, everything looked perfect. The show was a hit. The awards were coming in, and everyone loved Edith and Archie Bunker. But behind the cameras, things were not so smooth. Friends would later say that Jean Stapleton never really felt comfortable with all the attention or with the way the show was going. At first, no one could see it. Viewers only saw laughter in one of the most famous TV couples ever, Edith and Archie, messy, funny, and somehow completely lovable. But behind the smiles, Jean was quietly thinking, asking herself a question that would change her life and the show forever. Off-screen, her answer started a chain of events that even Carroll O'Connor didn't see coming. To millions of fans, Jean was Edith Bunker. But for Jean, the character was complicated. She knew Edith was written as shy, innocent, and often the target of Archie's sharp words. Jean loved what the show stood for, but she struggled with how Edith was written. In many ways, Edith was nothing like her real self. In real life, Jean was smart, confident, and strong. She had studied acting, performed on stage, and brought depth to every role she played. But on All in the Family, she often played someone gentle and submissive, loyal to Archie, even when he was mean or unfair. That difference started to bother her. Slowly, Jean found ways to give Edith more strength and respect. She changed the way she spoke, stood, and responded, adding moments of quiet wisdom and dignity. She made Edith more real, more human. Audiences noticed. Carroll O'Connor noticed. And behind the scenes, Jean's quiet battle with the character was just beginning. A battle that would change the way we saw Edith Bunker forever. Jean began to doubt herself. She asked, "Is this really the legacy I want to leave?" She was proud of what she had done, but could she keep going forever? She wasn't sure. Just as these thoughts grew heavier, the show was about to change in a big way, testing Jean's patience and pushing her to her limits. Carroll O'Connor was about to take more control, and Jean was already starting to step back. By the mid-1970s, All in the Family wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural phenomenon. Carroll O'Connor was no longer just the star. He had become the main force driving the show. What started as giving ideas soon became full control. Writers, directors, and producers knew that if Carroll didn't like something, it probably wouldn't be used. At first, his leadership helped. Carroll was passionate, sharp, and dedicated, but his growing control caused tension, especially with Jean Stapleton. Carroll wanted big, dramatic moments, while Jean cared more about showing Edith's emotions and gentle side. Jean stayed professional and didn't show her frustration, but people noticed her quiet distance during rehearsals. She read her lines, gave few notes, and went along with things. It wasn't anger. It was simply keeping her space. Their ways of working didn't match. Carroll was bold and outspoken. Jean was soft and calm. As he took more control, her chance to shape the show felt smaller, not in screen time, but in creative influence. They never became enemies, but the strong connection that had driven the show started to fade. The turning point came when Carroll began planning a spin-off, Archie Bunker's Place. He wanted to continue the story while Jean wanted to move on. He kept pushing forward and she quietly chose to leave. No arguments, no drama, just a firm decision that surprised everyone. And in the silence that followed, her choice spoke louder than words ever could. By the mid-1970s, Carroll wasn't just the star of the show. He had become the power behind it. He rewrote scripts, challenged producers, and decided how the show would feel. His instincts were sharp and his control was firm. Jean often said he supported her, but at times she felt trapped. She rarely complained, but in private she shared her frustration with close friends. It wasn't that she was tired of acting, it was that she was tired of playing Edith. She wanted to grow as an actress and try new roles, ones where she wasn't just quiet, sweet, or the nice one. But no matter what she wanted, the world saw only Edith. Fans called her dingbat, unaware of how much that hurt. Slowly, Jean began saying no to press appearances and avoiding storylines that made Edith look foolish. When writers offered her deeper, more emotional scenes, like a painful breakdown during a dramatic episode, Jean shone. She showed that Edith was more than comic relief. She was a real feeling person. But those moments were rare. The tension behind the scenes never went away. When All in the Family ended in 1979, fans were heartbroken. They hoped Edith might return in the spin-off Archie Bunker's Place or make a special cameo. Edith felt like family, not just a character. But Jean had made up her mind. She was done. She explained it simply. She had played Edith for almost 10 years, felt the character's story was complete, and wanted to try new things. Over time, though, the truth became clearer. Joan was exhausted, not just from the weekly grind, but from feeling creatively trapped. She wanted more than what the show allowed. And Carroll O'Connor, while they never had open fights, a quiet tension grew. What once felt like teamwork started to feel like control, and Edith, the heart of the show, was slowly fading. Jean didn't want to return for the spin-off. Even a farewell episode was rejected. In the end, the show explained Edith's absence with just one line. She had passed away off-screen. No tribute, no goodbye. Jean wanted it finished, and she cut ties with Carroll quietly but firmly. For her, Edith's story was over, and there was no turning back. Years later, Jean remained polite and graceful in interviews, always careful with her words. But whenever someone asked if she would work with Carroll again, she never gave a straight answer. She smiled, she shifted the topic. She dodged but never once said yes. Some thought she had been hurt. Others thought she simply wanted to move on. The truth, though, seemed deeper, a quiet line she had drawn for herself, one she would never cross, no matter who asked. Even Carroll O'Connor, with all his charm and power, could not change her mind. Carroll had always spoken his mind, whether about politics, storytelling, or how a show should run. But when it came to Jean Stapleton, he chose his words carefully. After she left All in the Family, he called her irreplaceable and praised her endlessly. Yet behind those kind words was a quiet ache, a sense of something lost. He tried to carry on with Archie Bunker's Place, hoping the magic could continue without her, but it never did. The show had its moments, and Carroll was as strong as ever. But the heart of the series, the gentle voice that had balanced Archie's bluster, was gone. Everyone noticed it. The audience, the critics, even Carroll himself. Without Jean, Archie's outbursts felt harsher. His vulnerability left hanging. Over time, Carroll stopped hinting at reunions. He no longer suggested special episodes or a comeback. When asked why Jean never returned, he gave a polite answer. She had moved on, but those close to him knew the truth. Her absence left a weight no one could lift. On set, she had been calm, professional, quietly powerful. Her presence grounded the chaos. Without her, the atmosphere was louder, wilder, unbalanced. Years later, Carroll admitted that the show was never the same after she left. He called it the end of an era. Yet he never explained why she walked away or whether his own growing influence had pushed her out. Whatever the reason, their bond never returned. They did not reunite for tributes. They did not share the stage for interviews. On screen, they were forever connected. Off screen, they drifted apart. And for Carroll O'Connor, a man who had fought so hard to control everything, This was one battle he could not win. Jean had made her choice, and she had said everything she needed to without ever raising her voice. Jean Stapleton was never drawn to fame or scandal. While others eagerly shared memoirs and juicy interviews, she stayed quietly in the background, holding on to her privacy with grace. But even in her silence, she let the world see that her choice to leave all in the family and never work with Carroll O'Connor again was deliberate, not impulsive. After leaving the show, Jean gave only a handful of interviews. She never spoke badly of Carroll, the writers, or the network. She never hinted at coming back. Her words were careful, sometimes so measured they seemed to dodge the questions, but in those guarded answers were tiny, revealing moments. When asked if she missed the show, she would smile and say she was proud of the work. When asked about Edith, she admitted she loved the character, but felt her story was complete. Yet she never suggested revisiting that world, not even for a tribute or a cameo. Jean always praised Carroll, calling him talented and saying it was an honor to work with him, but she quickly shifted the conversation to theater, TV, movies, or her love for Shakespeare. It was clear she had drawn a line around All in the Family, and she would never cross it again. In one particularly telling interview, a journalist asked why Edith had touched so many hearts. Jean replied, "Edith had empathy. She listened. She cared. People saw her heart." When asked if she saw herself that way, she answered simply, "Edith and I were very different. I am an actress. I do not live in that world." It was a quiet but powerful statement. She had spent years playing a woman defined by loyalty and submission, and now she was reminding the world that she lived by her own rules. Jean turned down reunion specials, declined offers to be in documentaries, and avoided award ceremonies honoring the show. Some thought she was just private. Others sensed there was more to the story. Whenever she spoke about leaving, she made it clear it was final. She believed in closure. When she closed the door on Edith Bunker, she locked it with quiet dignity. Yet fans kept asking, would she ever return? Would she ever sit down with Carroll again? Every answer was the same, no. For Jean Stapleton, it was never about drama or bitterness. It was about principle, choosing peace over obligation, walking away from even something beautiful when it no longer fit who she was. And just when everyone thought her story had ended, a final unexpected clue emerged, one that would change everything. Jean Stapleton spent her later years away from the glare of fame, returning to the theater and embracing roles that allowed her to expand far beyond the shadow of Edith Bunker. She portrayed Eleanor Roosevelt, delved into Shakespeare, and continued performing with grace and integrity until the very end. Yet no matter where her career took her, the world never stopped seeing her as Edith. Fans remembered her unmistakable voice, her gentle smile, and her place alongside Archie Bunker. But Jean had made a conscious choice, and she never looked back. In one of her final interviews, when asked why she never returned for a tribute or cameo, her response was simple and firm. "That part of my life is complete. I've said all I can through Edith." It wasn't just a refusal. It was a boundary she set for herself. Years earlier, in a lesser-known profile, she offered insight into what truly mattered to her. Asked what she valued most in her career, she said the freedom to choose. That is the real success, being able to decide when to start and when to walk away. That one statement encapsulated her ethos. Perhaps her story wasn't only about the character or the show. It was about reclaiming control over her own narrative, asserting her voice in a world that often tried to define it for her. Carroll O'Connor passed in 2001, never speaking ill of Jean, though he never fully explained what had transpired between them. Perhaps he didn't even have the answers himself. He did acknowledge one thing clearly. Without Jean Stapleton, All in the Family would have lost its heart. When Jean passed in 2013, the tributes were heartfelt, filled with respect and admiration. But there were no grand reunions or stage farewells. In that quiet, there was understanding. Jean Stapleton had always known the value of timing, when a role had run its course, when a story was complete, and when it was time to step away. In the end, her legacy wasn't just about a show. It was about dignity, self-respect, and the courage to move forward, even when the whole world hoped you wouldn't.